Today, Mike Fiddle and I take a look at week 6, looking ahead to all the streaming players. We've got a little bit of news to talk about as well. This is Fantasy Basketball International. This is Balls Deep. Got all my interest, mirrors they don't reflect all of the things that we do. Welcome to the Balls Deep podcast, part of the Fantasy Basketball International podcast network. This episode is brought to you today by Fantrax, the number one fantasy sports platform on the planet. We use it for all of our leagues. Anyone who's in our any of our leagues, we've got hundreds of them, knows that we use Fantrax, and we've used them, I think, since day dot. Very customizable, never too late to switch your league. If you're looking for a new platform, a new server, contact us, contact Fantrax. I'm sure they'd be happy to take you on board. As I said, I've got Mike Fiddle with me today. I'm going to bring him straight in. Mike, good afternoon. How are you?
Happy Friday. Happy holidays. I guess you're in Australia, so it's not really happy holidays.
No.
Or necessarily happy Friday, right?
Happy Saturday morning here. And look, Thanksgiving means nothing to us. So other than...
Do you guys still get access to Black Friday sales?
We do. Yeah. So that's really the only benefit for us. Basically for us, it's just a day without NBA. So it's boring. But yes, we do get access to the Black Friday sales. I went out to the sales yesterday, took my daughter out. The shops were nuts. There were people everywhere spending a lot of money, and that'll continue right through the weekend. I think the sales pretty much go for 4 days, which I assume they do over there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at this point it's like a whole week-long thing, or they even start 2 days before Thanksgiving now. It's push as many products as you can, but hey, that seems to be the best part of Thanksgiving now, is saving all your Christmas shopping for this time of the year.
It does, yeah. It can be dangerous, as I found out when I came home with more Lego and more shoes, and as you can see in my little bio there.
I was going to comment on this. Too many shoes.
Too many shoes. So I came back with 2 pairs from the US, and I bought another 3 pairs since I got back. I'm hoping to get back into playing basketball in February next year. So I think I'm a bit excited, and I've gone overboard and bought 5 pairs of new shoes. So it's, she thinks it's a problem. I don't. But
do you have a preference on what type of basketball shoe you play in?
Not really. I just like bright, colourful. I like trying new things. I do like the PGs. I've got 4 pairs of those, and they've been good. But I think I bought a pair of LeBrons, a pair of Freaks. I bought a pair of Puma yesterday, a pair of Westbrooks, and a pair of Donovan Mitchell shoes as well. So yeah, I'll try them all, see what's good, and if they're not good to play in, they're always good just to wear around as casual shoes. So.
Yeah, I think I need to get myself a pair of Freaks.
Yeah, look, they're not bad. As I said, I just bought them because I like the colors. We managed to find an outlet store in Boston that was within walking distance of where we were staying. So yeah, that was dangerous. I thought I was actually pretty reserved and well behaved in the store, and only walked out with 2 pairs. I could easily have walked out with 5 or 6 if I'd had more room in my suitcase. But yeah, that's another story. We're here to talk about stream targets. It is another odd week. There's no games on Sunday. I haven't even looked into that, but why are there no games?
I think it's because the in-season tournament. I would check the calendar. There's no okay. Sunday or Monday games, and then there's the to be scheduled for Tuesday and Thursday that we still don't know about. This is already projecting 2 weeks ahead.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at the week that we're going to talk about, there's going to be no games Sunday, and then the following week there's no games Monday, because then there's the in-season tournament stuff. So interesting to see how it shakes out in the fantasy landscape with the first year that they're doing this. But again, presents another week just like this week where we have 6 game days, but 7 days. And the reason why I point that out, Adam, for the listeners is you'll get a random week, whether it's like off of All-Star break or right after your fantasy draft when the league is starting, where it might start on a Tuesday or Wednesday and it's only going to go till Sunday. So you have games every day and it's still a 6-game, 6-day week because it started on Tuesday. When we get to a point where you have still 7 days in the week, crazy thing to have 7 days in a week. When you still have 7 days in the week, but you only have 6 game slates, then it gets back to this idea that we briefly touched on last week where you could get into island streams where you can go, you could target some of these Boston or San Antonio schedules that only have 2 games, which we'll talk about, because it's like, hey, if I'm going to use my 1 of 3, my 1 of 4, my 1 of 5 streamers, depending on how many ad drops your league settings have, then it's okay to go target an island game if there's going to be an entire day where you can't pair a back-to-back or you can't pair a 2 games in 3 days type of situation.
Yeah, it's certainly, I think, so I don't know if it was, we talked about this last week or whether it was another show, but it feels like it's been an odd start to the season for me. A lot of heavy slates with like where we've having to make lineup changes, random days off. So look, I guess that's the new normal because this in-season tournament doesn't look like it's going anywhere based on how successful, I suppose, it's been.
Oh, it's actually been awesome. I'm someone who watches November basketball every November, so there didn't need to be an extra incentive for me, but it's been great nonetheless.
Yeah. So I just thought I'd touch on a little bit of news. Obviously, Josh Giddey has been in the news for the wrong reasons, and we were talking about our Discord server, and that was an animated space yesterday with a heated discussion. There has been so Shams has tweeted out, Woj has reposted a tweet from Tim McMahon that the league is looking into allegations that Thunder guard Josh Giddey has been involved in an improper relationship with an underage girl. Giddey and OKC coach Mark Daignault declined to comment on the matter after practice. So, look, I guess this is now official because up until this point, it was just what people had seen on Twitter and making their own judgments. So this is a thing now. The NBA are looking into it. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out. And I know it's going to depend on how old she is, what state he was in. There's a few factors here that go into it. It's certainly not a good look. It wasn't what I was expecting to see pop up on my Twitter timeline a couple of days ago. I mean, any thoughts from you on this, or you're remaining fairly neutral?
Yeah, I would say I heard you and Josh talk on the subject a little bit yesterday on his podcast. I'm glad that you're touching on it here. I guess pun intended. I'm going to try and not touch on the situation. Yeah, I think it's a little bit. I see so many sides of the story, and you could have hours long conversations about the legality versus the morality. What I will say is that if anyone's listening to this podcast and is not in the Fantasy Basketball International Discord, this lit a flame in there, and it became one of the, in despite of bad news, it was a very fun place to be. That's all I will say. So I would say anyone who's listening to this podcast, come join the FBI Discord, because there was plenty of opinions to be had in there. There was plenty of people discussing the potential fallout, potential players to target, whether you want to pick up a Cason Wallace or a Isaiah Joe, or is Isaiah Joe going to still be hitting these threes, or is it really J-Dub who's going to have the biggest boost? Those conversations are all worthy to be had, and there was some plenty full of that in the FBI Discord. So anyone listening who's not in there, highly recommend joining.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, it was fun. I mentioned to you I came into it late because I was at work when a lot of it was happening, or I was getting up because it happened overnight. Yeah, look, at the moment, I mean, I think we just have to wait, see what happens here. As I said, there are a number of things that they need to look into. In terms of beneficiaries, yeah, look, maybe it's Isaiah Joe. Cason Wallace, I don't know. I mean, maybe he gets a bump, but he hasn't really done anything to make me think he would be a must-roster player. Maybe it is Jalen Williams that, I mean, he's already been ruled out tomorrow, but maybe he does get a little bit of a bump in terms of his assist numbers. And And
they
just
didn't
one
rule
other.
they didn't rule anything on Giddey's availability moving forward, right?
No, not yet. No. So,
and you would think he probably is going to be available to play because, barring any news, it's more of just a public relations battle at this point. So I would still think he's going to play, especially because then you could get things like players union involved and it can get ugly from that side of things. So I assume he's going to play and there's going to be no bump to anyone. I did notice that Cason Wallace started last game with J-Dub out, so I would assume he's going to remain in the starting lineup. And he hasn't had the friendliest fantasy 9-cat game, but he looks good when he plays, and they're having trouble keeping him off the court. He's been closing games for them. He's even been closing over Giddey. So they traded up in the first round to get him. They gave away the pick that became Dallas's Derek Lively. They absorbed the David Bertans poison pill of a contract. And so they're clearly committed to him being a piece next to SGA and Chet. So is this the moment? Potentially. I don't think it comes until we have word on how the Giddey situation is going to be handled, but I'm sure that's going to take a little bit of time, and me and you will probably do another show or two before we have some more information on that.
Yeah, I think so. I think we just move forward assuming that he's playing. It will be interesting to watch and see what the reaction is like for him from the crowd, that sort of thing. So watch this space, I suppose. Just something I quickly wanted to touch on. I've been watching the Magic game. They're on playing an early game today against the Celtics. Cole Anthony sprained his ankle just before halftime, and it does look like he's returned. I haven't got the game on, but just checking Twitter. So it does look like he has come back on in the third quarter, but anyone that's had an ankle sprain knows that the first half, and if you keep it warm and if you keep it moving through the game, it'll be okay to play on. But he's then got to get on a plane. So it could very, very well flare up overnight. So I would just keep an eye on that because there is a chance that he misses some time here. And we are going to talk about the Magic as we work through some of these teams. So we'll talk about what that might mean
Wasn't
moving
he playing
forward.
Fantastic too before the injury?
Pardon?
He was playing fantastic today before the injury.
He was, yeah. He was playing well. Jalen Suggs was having a bit of an off night. Anthony basically came on with 4 minutes to go in the first quarter, I think, and didn't come off. He just played the whole second quarter, I think, and had a highlight dunk, was defending well, had a couple of steals. So, so this will impact fantasy if he does miss time. So as we said, a bit of a weird week. We've got some high-volume days, low-volume days. High-volume days are Thursday and Saturday, so they're the days, I guess, we're looking to avoid when streaming or not as much. Low-volume days are Monday and Friday, and we've got 4 teams that are playing on both of those days, Denver, New Orleans, Philly, and Washington. I was thinking, so looking ahead, because the schedule for week 7, if we jump ahead another week, hasn't actually been released yet because they need to wait for the in-season tournament to play out so they know who's playing who and what the schedule looks like. Because I would normally say you could look at someone who's playing on the Saturday and then the Tuesday, which I think is when the next lot of games are, but you're not actually going to be able to know. You won't know that until... Although maybe everyone is playing on the Tuesday because everyone has 2 games in that next week. So does everyone play the Tuesday? Do we know that?
I believe the entire league plays Tuesday, Thursday.
Okay, so anyone that plays on Saturday is going to have that sort of pseudo back-to-back where they're playing Saturday and Tuesday. But as you can see here, Saturday is a high-volume day as well. And Tuesday, obviously, there's going to be 15 games. That's going to be high volume. So maybe that isn't probably something to consider because your whole roster is going to be active. So you're potentially not going to be playing these guys that you stream.
Same with Saturday because it's so high volume and there's 12 games, which honestly, it's a great point to bring up that Saturday is going to be a full slate. Sunday has no games. Monday has no games. Tuesday's back to a full slate again. Use your pickups early in the week. Use your pickups for a Monday. Like, get after it early. Look at your matchup. what team are you playing against? What are you good in? What are they good in? What might you need to get an edge on category-wise? Like, go into the statistics in the league and see, is this team a really good field goal shooting team and you should, punt that this week? Or should you play into it and try and go get someone who can get some easy buckets and high efficiency? So check those things and stream early in the week this week, because there really are no options for late week streaming once you see how your matchup is playing out. You almost have to forecast your matchup this week.
That's right. And no streaming really beyond this week. So up until week 8. So it's basically a week without streaming somewhat, because Tuesday, Thursday, there's no point really.
Can I ask you 2 questions on that?
Yeah.
Do you know if the week 8 and week 9 is just going to be one combined fantasy week because there's only 2 game days? Or you think it's going to be a very light fantasy week?
I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing that when I was setting up schedules. There's obviously that they combine those 2 All-Star weeks as one when it comes to fantasy, but I don't remember seeing any other combined week. So I think it's just going to be a normal week, but with 2 games for everyone. So just a low volume week where you're really just playing your 10 best players twice and that's it. So as I said, no streaming value at all, unless you've got a ton of injuries. And you've got to stream in, but beyond that, you're really just playing your best players. We have got quite a few teams with some back-to-backs. Dallas, Denver, Detroit, Houston, the Clippers, the Lakers, Memphis, Pelicans, Knicks, Magic, Phoenix, Sacramento, Spurs, Toronto, and Utah. Majority of the teams have 3 games this week. So we've got 2 teams with 2 games, Boston and San Antonio. So they're teams we're probably looking to avoid. And 6 teams with 4 games this week: Denver, Detroit, Clippers, Lakers, Pelicans, and Jazz. So if we slide across here, so having a look at those teams that do play on both low volume nights, as I said, we've got Denver, New Orleans, Philly, and Washington. Starting with Denver, there's not a ton of streaming value because we basically know who's doing what here until Jamal Murray is back.
There's one person doing everything.
Pretty much, yeah. That's the way it's been for the last few years. I've put in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Chances are, look, he could be sort of rostered in most competitive leagues, but he is floating around out there. As is Reggie Jackson in a few spots. Really, it's probably just Christian Brown, who's coming off a pair of pretty good games, but I'm still not convinced that this is something that can stick. Anyone else on the Nuggets that interests you?
Not particularly.
No. They're a pretty boring team for fantasy. Pelicans have a little bit more. Dyson Daniels was sort of rostered a week ago, but since then, Jose Alvarado has come back into the rotation, and Dyson, he's still starting, but his minutes have taken a little bit of a hit, so he has probably been dropped in a few leagues, so he's worth a look. Larry Nance, also back from his rib injury in the last game, I believe. We know that they like playing him alongside Zion when he's healthy, so he might be worth grabbing just to see what his minutes play out like this week. Najee Marshall is always serviceable off the bench. He's never going to blow up and give you massive numbers, but he has a decent role on this team. And Jordan Hawkins is another guy that may have been dropped. I did see him in 2 of my leagues last night. He was available. He's sort of cooled off a bit after he had that really hot stretch, but I still think he's going to play sort of meaningful minutes and do enough on these low volume nights until CJ's back. And we don't, CJ is getting close, but we don't have a date or anything yet on when he's back. Any more sort of on the Pelicans there from you?
That's what I was going to say. We have reports that CJ is practicing in full, so he's like not limited in any practices. So it's going to be a matter of time before he gets back. He missed 17 games when he had this injury last time. He's missed 9 so far this time. So maybe he gets on the court a little bit sooner. But those guys like Dyson Daniels, Jordan Hawkins are certainly going to be impacted upon the return of CJ, not only from a scoring perspective, a playing time perspective, but just also a usage rate. Even if they are on the court, if they have CJ next to him, he's going to have the ball. Dyson Daniels since he's been starting, their defense has been incredible, which is no surprise to me. I'm one of Dyson Daniels' biggest fans. I would absolutely love him in a dynasty setting. I just think he's a potential amazing player in the making, like a real winning piece. He reminds me a lot of what Lonzo could be, or what we wish Lonzo was if he stayed healthy. Najee Marshall feels to me very similar to a Kenrich Williams in OKC, where this guy plays this role and the team loves him, and the role's not going anywhere. So whether it's BI, whether it's Nance, they come and go in the lineup. They've been hurt. If Najee Marshall's healthy, he's going to get his 22 minutes, and he's going to do a little bit of everything. So it's never sexy on a given night, but it's always a little bit of everything, and you could pretty much count on it, and it's reliable. So in a situation where the schedule looks nice, you can almost stack a few of those together. And of course, CJ is still hurt. Larry Nance is probably one of my favorite players in the NBA that I've almost never rostered in fantasy, because his opportunity share just doesn't ever match his talent. He can do everything. He could be a top 50 player in 9-cat so easily if he was given the proper play time, because of his block steals, his efficiency, his rebounds. He's like an upgraded Kyle Anderson, in my opinion. I think Larry Nance is one of the most misused players in that system. I hope he gets traded, or somehow they get rid of Valanciunas to open up more space. But when they put him in that Draymond role, he's truly one of the best in the league at it. Don't add.
He is. Yeah, look, it does feel like he's sort of one of these guys, I feel like, for years that we've just wanted him to play more, because he's been a fantasy relevant guy, but never to the point where he's must roster for a significant period of time. He does seem to get injured a lot, which is a little bit unfortunate. But as you said, I like the comparison to Kyle Anderson there, because he is quietly a good facilitator as well. You can run the offense through him. He's still super athletic. He gets off the ground quickly. So we did see last year that they started to, as I said, go with him alongside Zion for a period when they were really hot to start the season, and then Zion got injured, as we know, and Nance did as well. And so they're not afraid to run that lineup and put Valanciunas on the bench. But to Valanciunas' credit, he's been pretty good this year. So
he's tough to bench.
I don't think it's a straightforward decision, but something to monitor. For Philly, a few names here as well. I have put Kelly Oubre on here. We don't have a date for him, but it does sound like he's pretty close. They said he was going to be reevaluated in a week. A couple of days ago, I've seen him on a couple of waiver wires. I'm not sure what his season, like what his value looks like rest of season. He was strong to start the season, but he had started to trend down slightly before he got injured. But look, if you want to take a bit of a flyer and just see what his role looks like, if you need some points, efficiency can be an issue, but he can get some defensive stats from time to time. Jaden Springer, I really like him in terms of fantasy. I think he has a lot of upside in a really fantasy-friendly game. It does look like they're starting to trust him a little bit more, but it does also depend on the matchup, because we saw Pat Beverly play big minutes in the last game over him. I've put Pat Beverly, I've put Nick Batum, I've put Robert Covington. Honestly, I'm not interested in any of those guys, but just because we don't know what that rotation is going to look like from one night to the next. Are you interested in any of them as viable options, or are there probably going to be better players available?
To be honest, I'm most interested in knowing the truth about what happened with that Oubre situation. There seems to be some conflicting reports there. We touched on the Giddy situation. Maybe one day we'll figure out what happened with Oubre. Springer versus Pat Bev, I think it's an interesting thought. I like where your head's at. I'll just throw in that Pat Beverly likely played more than Springer last game because they were going against the Timberwolves, which is a nice little revenge game for Pat Bev. Everyone knows the video clip of him jumping on the scorer's table when they made the play-in tournament. Yep. One of my favorite videos in the NBA social media era. Nick Batum, Robert Covington, no, especially when Kelly Oubre comes back, and that might be soon, it kind of just mucks up the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I think Philly is very similar to Denver, where they get the hub of all of their statistics through their center. They have a point guard who could be a valuable contributor. And then the rest of it is kind of just picking a rabbit out of a hat.
Yeah. Washington, another team that's, well, the less we talk about them, the better, probably.
You just call Washington a team?
Well, it's really stretching it, calling them a team, a group of people, a huddle. We could come up with many names, but Bilal Coulibaly, look, he's probably the only one on that list. I just had to put some more names. So I went through, it was hard. I went through, who am I going to put here? So I did put Corey Kispert and Landry Shamet. They're really just points and threes guys off the bench. But again, I'd much rather someone like an Isaiah Joe or Sam Hauser, despite the fact they only play 2 games. I feel like they're a little more reliable. Coulibaly has been intriguing. The offense is obviously still a work in progress, but he brings it on the defensive end. If you wanted to grab him and see, I still think Denny Avdia is ahead of him quite comfortably in the rotation. Coulibaly, come December, we're almost in December, so come January, February, I think he'll be playing 30 minutes a night hopefully they should know that they're bad. I think they do know that they're bad, but it's probably a little bit early to be throwing in the towel completely, but I think they will at some point. Do the Wizards interest you at all?
No. No, I think Tyus Jones being dropped in some leagues, he was dropped in my league and then he was picked back up. If Tyus Jones has been dropped, that's egregious, and get on that and pick him back up. That's really the only thing I would say. The Gafford's been incredible. Kuzma and Poole have been fine, inefficient. Poole's been terrible, actually. But I'd say it's kind of tough to fit these guys into a build. If you're going Kispert or Shamet, you're simply streaming for threes. And it feels like there's a lot of players in the league that you could do that with. Even a few players on this list you could do that with. You just go up and grab a Jordan Hawkins or KCP instead. With Bilal, it's tough to figure out what roster construction he fits in, because you have to almost be a punt field goal percentage team. But most of those teams are also generating a lot of points, and he's not that much of a points guy. So you're normally stacking him with the LaMelos and the Trays, if that's the combination you went with. But then he doesn't really add in some of the other stuff that really helps you if you're also punting field goal percentage. So I see what you're saying with he's the development project there, and he could provide a lot of stocks and a lot of hustle stats. So later in the season, when it starts getting really gross, he's definitely going to have some top 100 value. It's not there for me yet. I'd rather save the roster spot and start flipping it on other players.
Yep, completely fair. As I said, I think I had to put some names, so I put whoever I could find.
There you go.
So having a look at teams that have 3 games in 4 nights, I think there's about 8 or 9 of them. We'll start with Detroit. Jaden Ivey, he was sort of on the outer to start the season. Didn't appear that he was sort of in the good books, but has moved back into the starting lineup over Killian Hayes. I picked him up in our industry pickup league. I really just need assists, so I'm hoping he can maybe give me 4 or 5 assists. Alec Burks, who is really just points and threes, very hit or miss. I think I've picked him up twice already this season and then dropped him again last night. Isaiah Livers, who I think they like. I'm not sure what his role looks like. He's just come back into the rotation, so he's more of probably a name to watch rather than to target. And Isaiah Stewart, who may have been dropped in a few leagues, who I don't think is a must-roster guy this season, but certainly can be streamed in if you need some rebounds. Doesn't do a lot on the defensive end. Any interest in these guys? Anyone on Detroit that I've missed?
I think Beef Stew is probably the one to go with. Jaden Ivey now starting. So if he's going to keep this starting job, I mean, who knows what Monty Williams is doing with this team right now. It's been an absolute disaster. It's if you're going to not start Ivy, I don't know why you're playing Killian Hayes. You should at least play Burks. But on the other flip side of that, going back to the Stewart part, he absolutely has to remain on the floor because he at least offers some spacing. So he's averaging 32 minutes a night right now and 1.6 threes. Those I don't think are going anywhere unless they make a big trade. the way that this team is designed with absolutely no shooters makes it really sad that he's one of the ones that they have to rely on, and it contributes to some of the inefficiencies that he's playing from behind the arc so much. But any given night, he could have a double-double. He could have 2 or 3 threes. So there's a lot of ceiling in a single game or a 2-game stream. The role is very steady. The one thing I'll say with watch out for Detroit is Bogdanovic should be coming back pretty soon. He's starting to practice again with his calf. He's been ruled out for the next few games, but he practiced fully on Wednesday, so return seems to be coming soon. He is going to be so important for this team. If he's on the waiver wire, he's probably was drafted and stashed into an IL plus spot. But if he's on the waiver wire because people forgot about him or just got rid of him if they were already too injured and they couldn't hold on to someone like that, he is an absolutely must-roster fantasy player. He should be a top 80 player pretty instantly upon return.
Yeah, agreed. I'm just having a look at if we have got what the information on Bojan is when my page loads up.
I used to work for the Nets, and that was when he was on the team, and one of the nicest guys in the world.
Right. Okay. Well, good to know. Good to know there are nice guys.
Easy to root for.
Yeah, so as you said, he's close. He's getting close, has been ruled out for the next game, but that will impact Isaiah Stewart because it will be interesting to see who drops out of that starting lineup, whether they drop Stewart, move Bojan to the 4, or whether they move Thompson back to the 2 and maybe Jaden Ivey goes back to the bench. So, yeah.
I think it's probably going to be Ivy because honestly, Beef Stew's still a better shooter, and what Cade Cunningham needs is shooting to surround him. But the flip side of that is if it is Ivy who stays, then Bojan gets just another boost because it's only a matter of time before he gets the power forward eligibility added to his positions, and I could be different on different platforms. I know on Yahoo he's just shooting guard, small forward. He's going to play primarily the 4 this year, and he's certainly a trade candidate to a winning situation, to a contending team at the deadline, in which very high likelihood he goes there and plays the 4.
Yeah, I think on Fantrax he is a power forward because I like him.
That's why you should use Fantrax, because they get it right.
It is why you should use Fantrax, but it's because I know I drafted him, put him in my IR. I've had to drop him since because I've had so many injuries, but he was a really good fit for a lot of my builds this year as a power forward who basically gives you points, threes, good free throw shooter. So those sort of guard stats. The Clippers. I've put Norm Powell on here. He is questionable, I think, coming into tonight. He had, I think it was a groin sort of niggle injury kind of thing in the last game. Questionable, but I'm always cautious when it comes to groins, hamstrings, that even though he's listed questionable, there is a chance he misses a bit of time because you can't really rush these things back. So if Powell is if he's healthy, then I think he's worth a look because they have been closing with him lately. If he's out, Terrence Mann, I think he's someone to consider because he'll probably get some more minutes. Westbrook, I probably could have put on here as well because he may have been dropped in a few leagues. He's moved back to the bench. And then I put Daniel Tice, who they picked up about a week ago, basically as a replacement for Plumlee until he's back, and he's still I think a month off or 5 or 6 weeks or something. So Daniel Tice has played pretty good minutes the last few games and put up good numbers. So he's just someone probably better suited to deeper leagues, but even in a 12-team league, if it's a low-volume day, I mean, grab him. He plays well when he's on good teams. He has the ability to stretch the floor a little bit as well. So what are your thoughts on the Clippers and these guys I've popped here?
I like Tice. I agree. If Norm Powell is there, he's a very consistent streamer. He's going to pair well with Harden because of the three-point shooting he provides. If he's not there, it's going to increase opportunity for Terrence Mann. But Tice is a player who's very essential to the way James Harden plays, in that he has the footwork to do the pick and roll, and he has some size combined with some speed. Zubac is missing the speed element of that equation, so he doesn't really roll well with Harden. So Tice is not going anywhere, and it does not surprise me at all to see him putting up 10 or 11 shots in his 20 minutes. Normally, you're like, oh, he would expect to be a low usage guy. He's getting dump offs right near the hoop, so he's going to play with a lot of efficiency. He's going to grab a lot of rebounds. He's going to be someone in limited minutes who is pretty consistent. Honestly, very good for a points league if we're talking limited minutes, because he's going to be like potential double-double candidate, which is nice on points, but can be a little limiting in 9-10.
Take us through the Lakers. You might as well keep going. You're on a roll.
Lakers, Cam Reddish, it seems like LeBron's best friend. Is it just because he hits corner threes, or is it because he's a clutch client and one day we'll figure that out? I'm going to be avoiding Cam Reddish for now. It looks like he's also dealing with this similar groin stuff that Norm Powell is. Josh Giddey's dealing with his own sort of groin stuff. Torian Prince and Rui Hachimura. I was going to see if you caught that. Torian Prince and Rui Hachimura, very similar players in similar roles. Torian Prince, again, playing tons of minutes. So if he's going to keep up this amount of minutes log, he's going to be someone that I completely trust. I personally streamed Rui last week, and I will happily go back to the well. He's going to play his 28 to 30 minutes, and the guy has tunnel vision for putting up shots. He's kind of like Michael Porter Jr. in that sense. If he gets the ball, it's going up. So you could count on him to, in a stream spot, have that potential to get you a 15 or 20 and 6 rebounds type of thing. Christian Wood, probably the greatest surprise to the Lakers this season. He's probably owned. The minutes have been fluctuating a lot. He's owned in all my leagues. But again, if you're looking for rebounds, if you're looking for blocks, if you're looking for some nice boost to the field goal efficiency, he might go 4 for 4, 3 for 3, 5 for 7 on any given night. So I like all of them. I actually think the Lakers are a good team to stream into.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're
people we're going to talk about.
Oh yeah, God. Yeah, yeah. Look, Lakers, they're all viable. I think for different reasons, as you've alluded to. So it really does come down to what you need for the week. Oh, on to Memphis. Now I popped a couple of these guys in here because Desmond Bane was questionable, but I'm just checking in here, and so he is starting today. So I assume he's healthy, alongside Jacob Gilyard. So Gilyard had moved back to the bench. But he is now back in the starting lineup with Santi Aldama. I didn't put Aldama in here because I figured he'd been picked up in most spots by now. If he hasn't, go and grab him. It's really just a bunch of nothing here. Gilyard, I guess if he's starting, assists and maybe steals, but even in starters, well, as a starter, he hasn't blown anyone away. So John Conchar, we know he can sort of give you out of position stats. He's decent rebounder from the guard position. Derrick Rose, I don't know. We had to get him on this list at least once this year. He just can't play big minutes. So I just, even if he's got an opportunity, I just don't think they can push him to the point where he can be fantasy relevant. And then I threw in Shaq Harrison and Jalen Noel, who were signed to 10-day contracts yesterday, I believe. Shaq Harrison, we know a little bit like a Chris Dunn. If he gets minutes, he can put up fantasy numbers in a hurry. So have a look at the rotation today and see how they use him, if they use him. Jalen Noel has had moments as well throughout the last 12, 24 months when he was with the Timberwolves, where he went off, and so he can score in a hurry. So both of those guys are names to watch. I wouldn't be adding them just yet because they might not even be in the rotation. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Grizzlies? I mean, obviously they've got a lot of injuries, so there are guys that are going to get opportunity, but are we prioritizing any of them?
No, I think you could even add David Roddy to the list too.
Yeah,
he's getting consistent minutes. The statistics have been a little all over the place. It's not sexy, but you could play into it on a given stream night, or if the schedule is nice. These guys have 3 games in 4 days to start a slower week, so it's interesting, but no, they really need Ja Morant back. I would say to the Noel, Harrison, Derrick Rose, Gilliard, like they're all kind of a similar player, like a scoring punch from the guard position, kind of exactly what they're missing from Morant. If any one of those guys does step up, if Shaq Harrison does put up 16 points this game, then I'm quick to add them because it might last for the next 2 weeks until Ja is back. So I think they're really missing offensive scoring punch from the guard position. Simply too much is going on Desmond Bane's shoulders. Yeah. So if one of these guys steps up in one game, then pick up the hot hand and look to ride it for a week or two.
So news just came through that Rui Hachimura underwent a procedure to repair a nasal fracture today. So he will be reevaluated in a week. So don't stream Rui Hachimura because he won't be playing.
No, but bump up the Taurean Prince. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many more minutes he can handle, but it seems like he's not coming off the floor then.
Yep. The Knicks, again, they're a team that I generally avoid just because the minutes are up and down. But I've just put this is a bit of a three-headed monster. These guys, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, and Quentin Grimes. Even coming into the season, we figured that they were all going to just cut each other's grass and limit what each other can do. We've seen when one is injured or out, two often step up. But with all three of them healthy and playing, Grimes seems to be starting. But I think if I had to pick one, it would probably be Hart. Josh Hart would be the priority there just because of his ability to get some rebounds and some defensive stuff. DiVincenzo had one game, I think, last week where he went off, but then he's done nothing since. Are you interested in any of the Knicks guys?
Depending on what you need. Grimes, no, because even though he is the starter right now, his usage is so low. He's getting those cardio minutes. He's not getting enough statistics that warrant it. DiVincenzo and Hart, kind of, what do you need? And, if you need more threes, you go DiVincenzo. If you need more rebounds and stocks, you go Hart. If you need someone who's more consistent at the free throw line, because that's something you're cognizant of, you go DiVincenzo. So very similar players, going to maintain similar roles as long as they're both out there, going to cut each other's grass. I think that's a great expression for it. And I feel pretty similar about both of them, just more of what you need.
So on to the Magic, who I'm following along here. And Mo Wagner currently has 27 points in 23 minutes. Wow. So I've got him on my list. Very good. I've put Joe Ingles. Look, he doesn't do a lot, but I think they need him out on the floor. He does provide them with a bit of a veteran presence. And you can I even noticed watching the game this morning that Jamal Mosley goes to him and uses him as a means of communication on the court. So he was calling out to Joe a lot. So I think they do value him. He's played 21 minutes tonight, only has 5 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. But he's a guy that you can grab if you're just looking for some assists and threes. Jonathan Isaac, his minutes have been a little bit up and down. He's at 13 tonight. No defensive stuff, but he's really just a guy you're streaming in if you need defensive blocks and steals. Mo Wagner, as I said, he's going off tonight, but don't expect 27 points in 23 minutes every night. But he is, if you're looking at the two centers that they've got rolling at the moment, Goga Bitadze and Mo Wagner. Wagner is the one you want to go with if you need points and threes. Bitadze is if you need rebounds and defensive stuff. And then Gary Harris, I said we would talk about this. Cole Anthony is still on the court and playing, but if he misses time, I think Gary Harris is a nice option. He started the second half today over Anthony Black, who's done absolutely nothing, despite starting, I think, 9 games. So Gary Harris, if you need threes, would be a nice option here. Anyone else on the Magic that I'm missing?
No, this seems to be it. I would say keep eyes on the Cole Anthony news. I think that's a great point. It's actually I think Greg Anthony, his dad, is calling the game. That's an ironic moment, and it kind of sucks. I mean, actually, when you get hurt, you always kind of want one of your parents there, so maybe it's a blessing in disguise. I think the Magic right now, the biggest story about them is 7-game win streak, or I think 6-game win streak, winning 7 of their last 8. including wins over Milwaukee, Denver, and Boston in the process. So, I mean, look to back this Magic team in more than a few ways than one. They're just a very good defensive team. Like this Celtics Magic game is 102-90 right now as we're talking with 2 minutes left in the game. That is going to limit some of the fantasy upside. It's no Indiana Pacers where we're putting up 300 total points in the game, but this Magic team is a fun team to back, a fun team to stream, pretty consistent options around the board, and they're playing really well. So I like all of them pretty equally.
I do. And look, I think at the moment we just need to assume that Markelle Fultz is out until further notice because he's right. Already getting ruled out like a day in advance, 2 days in advance. So it's very frustrating. And if you need to drop him, I think you have to. I'm trying not to, but part of that is just me being stubborn because I was pretty high on him coming into the season.
So I know you're also high on Jalen Suggs historically, Adam. How much do we think that Suggs's great start to the season is a reflection of some of the depth around him being weaker? Like, is it sustainable? Like, if I'm a Suggs owner, am I selling high? If I'm not a Suggs owner, am I trying to buy him for rest of season value? Or where does that kind of fall for you?
Yeah, look, it's hard to know. I like to think that he probably has 12-team value the rest of the season. I do think the fact that Fultz isn't there has to play into or has to be looked at when you look at what he's been able to do to start the season. And as I said, Anthony Black, who's been starting, has done nothing at all. So if you throw in a point guard that's going to have the ball in his hands a lot, that is a really good facilitator, good defender like Fultz, that's going to take away a little bit from Jalen Suggs. But I've liked his game for a while. So, I mean, he's top 70 over the last month, top 70 for the season, basically. Yeah, look, I like to think he'll be top 100 rest of the season. In terms of selling high or buying or whatever we want to look at there, I think, I mean, if you could sell him for a top 70 player, I probably would. I just don't think anyone would buy that given the sample size of his career to this point. This is people might still see this as an outlier with good reason because he has been pretty ordinary thus far. He has had injuries. So I think if he can stay healthy, they can get Fultz back out there. As you said, they're a really good team this year. So it does look like they're going to beat Boston. They're up by 14 with a minute to go. So that one is done. So they are a really good team. We have seen them start hot before and then cool off towards the back end of the season. But I like what I've seen from them, as you said, on the defensive end. I think they're really building their game on defense. Looking at Phoenix, Durant is out tonight. So I'm not sure that if there's any long-term value in any of these guys here. But someone like a Keita Bates-Diop or a Nasir Little as well, I could probably throw on this list with KD out tonight. And if he misses more time, Eric Gordon and Grayson Allen are probably the two main ones. They're probably rostered in a lot of leagues, not everywhere. They seem to be alternating. So one will be good one night and then it's the next. Beal is out for at least another week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. So I think Gordon and Allen, if either of them are available, probably should be rostered everywhere. Anyone else? Drew Eubanks has had his moments, but I think he's questionable or out for tonight's game. So, yeah, I don't really see anyone else. What about you?
No, I think probably those guys are owned. If you need to stream for threes while KD is out, look at like a Yuta Watanabe. But otherwise than that, it's going to be kind of gross. Beal and Booker. Is Beal playing yet, or is he still out?
No, Beal. Out. So Beal, yeah, Beal's still out with his back thing. And I think it was a 3-week reevaluation process.
So yeah, all these guys are probably Grayson Allen, Eric Gordon. I mean, I would assume Grayson Allen is potentially the most talked about name as we do the show throughout the season. Like he'll be on the list every single week, especially as he gets dropped in a few places when Beal does come back. But he's always going to be a viable stream. He was the same thing in Milwaukee the last few years. think he was in Memphis before that too. So I'm okay with any and all of them, and I don't have any preferences to a specific one.
That Magic game is over, and Cole Anthony played 28 minutes. So didn't play a ton in the second half, I don't think, but ended with 16 points, 6 assists, 2 steals, a block, 2 threes. So a really good night for him. Suggs ended with 10 points, 3 threes, 1 assist, 1 steal. He's really built on threes and steals at the moment, and some points. So on to Toronto, a really boring team, I think, this season. Like I've watched a couple of their games. It's hard to watch. I've put Gary Trent, I've put Precious Achiuwa, Chris Boucher, but none of these guys excite me. They're just positioned a lot like the Bulls. That they just need to actually tear it down, trade some people away. Let's hit the reset button. A little bit like Washington have done, but let's do it better than Washington, because I don't think they've done it well. Gary Trent, look, I do feel like there's going to be a period this season where he gets hot, and he'll have a week or 2 weeks where he scores 20 points a game and gets 2 or 3 steals, hits 4 threes. We haven't seen it yet. You just need to monitor his production. Look, are you excited here? Because I'm not.
No, the only thing I'll throw out is if they do tear it down, and some people who are listening to this pod may know this, others not. I'm mainly a gambler. That's where I specialize. So what I'm looking at is if this team does sell parts, and you're very right to say it might just be time to tear it down. They've lost way too many pieces over the years with getting no return, getting nothing back for Van Vliet, getting nothing back, pennies on the dollar for Lowry, letting Kawhi walk, getting nothing for Danny Green. So there's been too many guys who have left with getting nothing back. So Siakam, OG Anunoby potentially on the block. The best way to attack this from a betting perspective and stepping away from fantasy, because you cover the fantasy side so well.
Yep.
Scotty Barnes to win most improved player is still 5-1, so plus 500. This is really Tyrese Maxey's award to lose, with Scotty Barnes being the clear second in this. But at 5-1 odds, if Maxey were to get hurt and miss any time, or if the Raptors were to sell parts and give a way bigger load to Barnes, we're looking at him potentially skyrocketing up his board. So a little 5-1 futures on Scotty Barnes is a fun way to get some excitement in Toronto. And that's really the only reason to watch Toronto, is Barnes has been absolutely amazing this season.
He has. He's been good. His block numbers have come down, but we knew that was going to happen. But he's still doing a bit of everything else. I wish OG Anunoby would just play better. He's been underwhelming this season. So another reason that I just don't watch them, because they're boring. Take us through Utah, final team. What do you think about these guys? I know Kelly Olynyk was on your list that you sent me this morning.
Yeah, listen. How much longer are we having Walker Kessler still hurt?
I think it's a week. I think he was going to be reevaluated in a week, maybe. Let me look that up while you talk about the Jazz.
As long as Kessler's going to be out, and especially with the Jazz having a very favorable schedule this week, they have the 3 games in 4 days to start the week. So between Monday and Thursday, they're going to play 3 times. So we're talking about target these early week streams. Look for players that you can, get ahead of in certain categories. Kelly Olynyk fits every description of that this week. It's boring. It's not sexy. It's not fun to watch. But then you can look at the box score, and there's a little bit of everything at a really elite level, some of these games. So very high ceiling to stream into. Opportunity share should clearly be there. He is a no-brainer stream, in my opinion. He's probably still on a lot of boards. The THT Agbaji debate is Horton Tucker getting enough minutes right now. I feel like his minutes have slowly trended down throughout the season. It's too inconsistent for me. Agbaji, on the other hand, he does stay on the court because he's just his minutes are a little bit all over the place too. I mean, a lot of 25s and 30s, but then the last 2 games 17 and 14. So it's kind of hard to project onto that team right now. They're trying to figure themselves out. I do like Olynyk though. Right now, for the next week or 2, it's going to be pretty stable.
Yeah, so I just found some news. The latest we had on Kessler was from 4 days ago. He's been cleared to begin basketball contact, but will remain out at least one more week. And as we discussed, and I've discussed with a few people, and he did injure this elbow on opening night. So this was an injury that he played through for at least a couple of weeks. So when you look at what he was doing to start the season, I think you just have to put that caveat there that he was injured. So, because he was disappointing, he wasn't getting the numbers we were expecting, the minutes were down. So if he was just trying to play through this injury, that may have contributed to that. So I still hold out hope that he can turn things around. He was so good in his rookie season. So just keep that in mind. But yes, as you said, Olynyk is the guy we want here. Agbaji, it feels like the Jazz want him to be good and they're quite high on him, but they play him, they start him, and then they go, oh, so he's not actually that good. And he goes back to 15 minutes. Undoubtedly, there'll be another period in the season where they go, no, we want him to be good. Let's play him minutes. So he'll be up and down.
I was going to say, he's got that Bilal Coulibaly profile where later in the season, he's going to get tons of minutes.
Yeah, I think so, especially if they continue on their trajectory. Last season, they sort of came out of the gates red hot. Everyone was surprised. And then they cooled off late. But this season, I think teams have figured them out a bit. They have had a couple of injuries. So, yeah, it could be that he's playing big minutes at some point. Look, that's all the teams that I had, all the players that I had. Anyone you want to touch on before we get out of here?
There's just, I think, two that I wanted to hit on. I quickly looked up the transaction trends and who's been added the most. Jaime Jaquez, I just felt like we had to discuss one more time. We hit on him last week, and we were both very bullish on him and saying this guy's a real piece for this team. He's been the most added player on Yahoo over the last 48 hours, and he still has a 30% roster rate. The Miami schedule is not the greatest and most advantageous next week. However, this guy looks good. And I know Bam's been playing out, or, he's probable back tonight. So we'll see how it affects him. Jimmy is sporadic with, some rest nights here and there. It doesn't open up too much room for Jaquez if the team's fully healthy. But look, he's one of these players that's been too hard to keep off the court. And I think there's real potential that they make a trade and they trade Tyler Hero and they try and bring in a better point guard in front of Lowry or with Josh Richardson there. Like, they need to upgrade that spot pretty badly. And if that happens, where they get rid of yet another wing, if they add in Duncan Robinson for contract filler, then I think Jaquez is a rocket ship up if his minutes increase.
Yeah, I think so. He's playing more than I thought he would. I thought that they would utilize him, but not to this level. And I think Duncan Robinson is out tonight with a thumb thing. So that gives him a bump. It probably gives Highsmith a bit of a bump as well. And yeah, I mean, look, Tyler Hero was on the trade block. He was rumored to be out the door preseason. So who's to say they're still not leaning that way and looking to trade him at some point? And Jaquez he scored double digits in 6 of 7 of his last 8 games. He's typically playing at least 27, 28 minutes. Look, outside of the points, he can get you some rebounds. Not a lot on the defensive end yet, but they don't mind running the offense through him a bit. So I think he's a must-roster player. And only being rostered in 30% of leagues is actually pretty surprising.
People are sleeping. They need to be tuning in to Balls Deep.
And the final guy, you said you had 2 guys?
They were Jaden Ivey for Pistons, Rui for the Lakers, which obviously now that changes things, and Kelly Olynyk because of the schedule were the 4 that I popped up. I think you could even have the Haywood Highsmith debate too, because he's been starting for the Heat, but I'd much rather Jaquez. I would go to Highsmith in a strong schedule situation that doesn't totally exist. He's kind of a Najee Marshall for me, where he's going to do a little bit of everything. But I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Ivy, I think, I don't know. This is probably just because I managed to get him in a competitive league, and I'm hoping for the best. But there is a chance here because I remember seeing a lot of preseason videos and stuff, and he was talking about him and Cade, and they're the future in Detroit, and they're going to build around them, that sort of thing. And obviously that didn't pan out in the first month. He could have something to prove here. Like, he might be playing with a chip on his shoulder and trying to prove something to Monty Williams about the fact that he should be starting, he should be their future. So someone if he's available, I'd grab him and let's see what he can do over the next couple of weeks.
Especially with a good Detroit schedule this week. I mean, if you get the 3 games in the first 4 days and the back-to-back that you have with the Pistons, and 4 games in the week where you could hold on to him if he's, and then you get the 2 games next week where your team's going to be full anyways, so that you can just leave him on your bench and see how he does. You could hold on to Ivy for the next 2 weeks at very low opportunity cost.
Yep.
And hey, you might end up getting something good. So if I was in a competitive league, that's definitely a situation that I'd be looking at. I think it's a strong pickup.
Yeah, agreed. And that will round things out today. I'm going to let you go. I think I've got to go do shopping, and I don't know, I've got things to do. Remember to follow Mike on Twitter at Fiddle's Picks. I am at Adam King 91. Why is he turning his camera? Oh, he's looking at his dog there, which living its best life.
LeBron is passed out with her leg up in the air.
It's where I'd like to be. Passed out with I don't know if I'd have my leg up in the air. That might not end well, but good to see the dog enjoying life. Maybe you need to take him for a walk or something. Get him out, get some activity. That will do it for today's show. Remember, you can check out all of our content over at fbibasketball.com. As Mike alluded to, go over, jump into our Discord server and see what people are talking about, whether it's about Josh Giddey or just anything fantasy related. I think I'm going to start doing some AMAs in our analyst channel, something I haven't been able to get to this season yet because it was obviously a bit disrupted with my travel. But now that I'm back, I'll probably jump in there. We are on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That would be amazing. Until next time, catch up.
You just listened to another episode from the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. And for more information about joining our community, please check out our website at fbibasketball.com.